Yeah, I ended up making like 60K the first year. Last year we did $1 million in revenue in our fourth year, fully in the subcontractor model. Following PBPs, I would rather put 10 grand into my business or myself on development than I would in the stock market. Show up and be like, why is there a touch up over here? Why is there paint on the floor?
Nice. You were 21 at the time?
Yeah, 20 or 21.
That's pretty good.
My goals are more aligned with creating freedom for myself and my family, like financially, but also time-wise. The biggest investment truly is yourself. Just keep developing yourself, surround yourself with minded people, and it's just one step at a time, really. Even right now, I have 100 million things on a future to-do list, but working on that. Good things will happen. It just takes time.
Welcome to the Painting Business Pro Show. My name is Eric Barstow, and today I've got an awesome conversation for you with Kenzie Sonoy, who runs Ultra Painting up in Madison, Wisconsin. Kenzie started his painting business basically instead of going to college. So he did one semester of college and then said, you know what? Not really my thing. I don't want to do college during COVID. Instead, I'm going to start a painting business. And he never looked back. Over the last 4 years, he's built his painting business to be a very much lifestyle business where he's taken several weeks off every year to go on awesome ski trips. He's got some amazing stories about that. He's built $1 million painting company, and he has now actually partnered with us and is continuing to grow and scale his business. So he's young, he's hungry, he's ambitious. He's doing an awesome job building his business. So for anyone out there who is young and considering building a company instead of getting a college degree, this might be a great episode for you to listen into. We talk about a lot of the failures, lessons, and mistakes that Kenzie has made along the way to building his company to $1 million plus per year. Hope you enjoy the episode as much as I did. Hey, what's up, Kenzie? Thanks for coming on the show. Super excited to talk with you. So let's start with how you got into the painting business.
My whole life, my family was entrepreneurs. My dad had a building company. My grandma had a cleaning company. My mom was doing e-commerce stuff. My brother ran a painting company. So I always knew that I wanted to run my own business and didn't want to go to college. So after high school, I kind of took a gap year. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was a ski bum for a year out in Colorado. Found out that I wanted to actually make some money and be able to do those cool trips with some money, not just roughing it all the time. So came back home and actually went to college for one semester. Went to a small school in Wisconsin, and then COVID happened, and I was not prepared to sit behind a computer and do classes like that. Really just wanted to get out into the real world. So I started working with my brother, who owns a painting company in Minneapolis. Was working, doing a lot of like pressure washing and manual labor, but then I also got to see like the business side of it too. He taught me how to do initial calls, took me to a couple estimates, and actually the first time we went to an estimate together, it was like a full day. We did 5 bids and closed 6 of them. And on the last bid, the neighbor across the street was like, he just like pointed at us while we were doing the walk around. And then my brother gave him a thumbs up. We closed that deal, went across the street, and the guy signed and had us paint his house too. So it was just
That's
like a
awesome.
lot of experience. Yeah, seeing what's possible, just bringing professionalism to this industry. And so I dug it, worked with him for a while. At the same time, was training for an ultra marathon through COVID, just because I had a lot of time on my hands. So I would work up there one week, train back home the next week, and just went back and forth through that summer.
And that was all in Minneapolis still?
That was all in Minneapolis, yep. So I was spending a week up there and then a week back here in Madison training, and then just did that for probably like 8 months.
How far apart are those cities? How far apart is Madison from Minneapolis?
It's about a 4-hour drive.
So you were just driving 4 hours back and forth? Like why didn't you just train in Minneapolis?
Well, yeah, so I would drive up there on like a Sunday night, and then I'd just crash on my brother's couch for a week. And then I would just come home to run around Madison because all my friends were home and I had a good community around here. So train with the people here,
Gotcha.
Still lived at home, and then would go back up. And
then when you were in Minneapolis, like you're basically working for your brother, like that's how you were making money?
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
So I was doing some admin work, but a lot of it was like learning how to paint, pressure washing, doing warranty stuff. And it honestly like was the perfect experience to start my own painting company, because somewhere in there I ran across PBP and got the course. And while I was working for him, I was just like also learning the content, kind of making a plan for eventually when I
Yeah.
did have the opportunity, like how I was going to break into the space. Um, and then it eventually just worked out. One winter I came back for Christmas and I was like, I think it's time to just go for it. Like, it's not going to get any easier than this. I have no expenses. My parents will let me move back into the basement. So I moved back in and started Ultra Painting, named after ultra running, in 2021. And my dad got me a referral. His siding subcontractor needed his home painted. So they had me out for an estimate, went out, closed the job on the spot. It was January 20th, 2021. I left that job site feeling like the man, and I drove right to Milwaukee where my girlfriend lived. She was back for Christmas break, and I asked her to be my girlfriend that day. So I sold my first job, started my business, got a girlfriend, and felt like the man. So now she's my fiance.
That's a good day.
It all worked out.
The one you're marrying.
Yes. Yep, Martha.
Same one.
So it was cool. She's literally been with me since the beginning of it all.
Yeah. All right. So that was 2021 that you started the business. So you had a whopping one semester at college. And turns out didn't really need college because yeah, I mean, anything you want to share about just the business now, just for context for anybody before we go through like the whole story?
Sure. Yeah, last year we did $1 million in revenue in our fourth year, um, fully in the subcontractor model, following PBP's
Yep.
blueprint pretty much exactly at this point. Didn't start that way, but yeah,
All right. And that was 20, so you started in 2021. I was 2024, did about $1 million. And so when did you graduate high school?
2018.
That was 2018. All right, cool. Nice. All right, awesome, man. So and that was the end of working for your brother. So it was 2021 that was January 2021 that you started it?
Yeah. So I was working on it through like 2020, getting my LLC and everything, but I didn't
Got it.
officially get a project until January
Yep.
20th anniversary.
Dude, I forgot. I mean, I knew all this about you, like if I thought about it, but just as you shared it all, I'm like, you've got such a crazy journey. Cause I remember I mean, you can share about this, but yeah, one is obviously running ultras and long distance and training for an Ironman and all those things that you've been doing.
Yeah.
But the other was like, dude, you've really built this as like pretty awesome lifestyle business the last few years. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So even in my first year in business, like I love skiing, I love running, I love pushing the limits. And that's kind of why I got into ultra running was like it was the perfect storm of me not having the business I wanted, not going to college, not having a ton of time because of COVID. And I just was like looking for an outlet to like build confidence and prove to myself that I can do anything. Like I saw all these other business owners and I was like, dude, these people are unhealthy. Like they're just not impressive people. And I know that if I can like put my mind to something crazy, like running 100 miles, then at the end of that, I'll have confidence to, do anything I want. So that's kind of where that came from. Um, and then I truly love like traveling and like roughing it. So even my first year in business, I built like a little tiny house on like a 10 by 8 trailer with solar panels and a little heater. And I shut down the business for a month in January in 2022, the beginning of the year. And my fiance and I went out to Breckenridge. We bought like a season's pass and we literally camped in a parking lot for like 5 weeks straight while she was on her college break. And we would ski all day, come back to the trailer, change, go to the rec center, hot tub, sauna, take care of ourselves, and then go to bed. And we woke up and we did that again, like for 5 weeks straight. So that was really cool. And it was a good like reward and break from running the business. Um, but I've pretty much done something along those lines every winter since starting the company, going on some sort of long skiing adventure across the country or across Canada. So I can get into
Dude,
some
I
of
didn't know
those too.
you built it. I didn't know you built a tiny house on the back of a freaking trailer to do that. I mean, I knew you were like ski bumming it and just like, yep, I made the money I need. Like, I'm gonna go and chill and ski, which is awesome because that's kind of like how I did it. My earlier years was like, dude, I'm not doing this to like work all the time. I'm doing this so I don't have to work, so I don't have to work, so I can do stuff. But I didn't know about the tiny house. That's pretty wild. So then you literally drove that. So you drove your car, pulling a trailer with a tiny house like across the country to Breckenridge.
Yeah, with my girlfriend and my dog. And it was at that moment I knew that I wanted to marry her because I don't know if I could have convinced one other person in the world to do that with me. There was a couple nights where the heater broke and we were just like, all right, we're sleeping up front. It's negative 10 degrees out. And then there was like the second year we drove out and pulled the same camper. On the way, it took us like 6 days to get there. My truck broke down a couple times. So we were stuck at like a repair shop living in the camper. And then right when the truck gets fixed in Denver, we're driving up the mountain, a huge snowstorm hits. So we barely make it to Golden before my truck literally can't make it up the road any further. And we were like we hit black ice and we're like scraping along the rail, like getting up the mountain. So we pulled off and stayed in Golden for a couple days till it cleared up. Like we had some crazy adventures in there. It was not all, easy.
Dude, that was like there's something really beautiful about like doing like roughing it, like of course like it's nice to have money and to like do nice things too, but some of my favorite memories were the crazy ones. Josephine and I, that was the similar with Josephine and I, whereas like we went to New Zealand and camped 19 nights in a row, just like a shitty car and a tent, and like just found places to camp for like 3 weeks straight. And we got through that and like had a great time, and there were no fights. I'm like, yep, this is going to be good. But anyways, those are the best, man. You gotta still find ways, even when you start making money, to like rough it and do it cheap and dirty. And there's something beautiful about that.
Yeah. I mean, I've gone on some really cool ski trips with my dad too, just like staying in these whatever mansions in Whistler and
Yeah,
wherever. And it's not as fun, you know. I like the challenge and I like just like saying I did something crazy. So
yeah,
yeah, it is cool.
yeah. Why don't you just kind of share the timeline from that first year to doing $1 million last year? And I know at some point you got like more and more, you've gotten like kind of more and more serious about the business too. So yeah, where's a good place to start? And I know you've got some learning lessons and some mistakes you want to share that you learned along the way too.
Yeah, I can kind of go year by year and hit the main bullet points.
Yep.
Year one, 2021, we did 200K in revenue. For marketing, I was using mainly Angie to get my first few leads, and I was closing a ton of them because I was undercutting people a ton. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was closing almost every estimate I went to. And then word of mouth and popping up a Google My Business page also just gained traction in that first year.
Do you make good money?
Yeah, I ended up making like 60K the first year.
Nice.
I was doing a lot of the painting though, so a lot of it
Mhm.
was truly just sweat equity, but it was good.
For a 21-year-old, or what, you were 21 at the time?
Yeah, 20 or 21. I think I
2021.
was
So being
21.
2021, making 60K, working kind of your own schedule, like that's pretty good, and then taking a month off to go be a ski bum, and I'm like, not bad. And I think there's a good lesson in there just for everybody. I want to underline. So I'll just underline things as you go, Kenzie. But it's like at the beginning, you can just undercut people. Like, so I think it's a great lesson. There's like, yeah, I was winning all of them because I was just undercutting people. I'm like, at the beginning, you can. Like, you probably did it for too long because you
Right.
probably would have been better off charging more. But like at the beginning, like it's easy to win because you have no other expenses. And if you've got a little bit of painting experience, you can even do the painting and you can be even cheaper. So you probably went too cheap, but still not too shabby.
Yeah, I definitely went too cheap. I like followed the principles of estimating, but that year I had college kids working with me as like my first crew through the summer, and I was paying them like 15 bucks an hour, so I was charging like 30 or 40 bucks an hour for like labor and then adding the materials on that, doubling it. So yeah, we're charging literally like 2 or 3 times that now, but
Yeah.
it's crazy. So it was awesome having those college kids the first year because it just like it was nice working with some buddies and training some people without experience. Like they didn't have a ton of expectations for me. So things actually went like super smoothly. But when they went back to college, I was slammed with production, couldn't paint it all myself. And that's when I stepped into subcontracting. So it was like August of 2021 when everybody went back to school. started interviewing subs. On my first project with a sub, they got paint on the carpet, and I had to replace, you know,
Nice.
a full bedroom of carpet. And then on the second project, there was a bunch of touch ups around the home, and I had the sub go back and touch up, and he touched up with the wrong sheen around the entire
Yep.
house. So,
Been there.
yep. So it was a little rough start getting into subcontracting, but
Dude, the Sheen thing is so brutal. The Sheen thing is so brutal because it's like it'll play tricks on you, because then you start touching up, and then all of a sudden it's not like I had one Sheen and two Sheens. Then when the touch ups happen, it's almost like you have three Sheens. Did you end up having to just like repaint all the walls, or were you able to get away with just like touching it all up?
I repainted a lot of stuff. Yeah. I just went out there and was like there till 10 p.m. just trying to wrap up
Was
this
that the
project.
same sub that got the paint on the carpet? You literally like, hey, that's okay, man. Let's just do another one.
It was a different sub. The one that got the paint
Okay,
on the carpet, actually, like, it was a fluke thing, and he ended up being a really great sub and still works with me.
nice.
But the
That's
second guy,
awesome.
I let go. Like, really focused on just meeting as many painters as I could, and eventually through that year found some great connections. And my main
Yeah.
sub now, Antonio, I found that year, and he still works for me. So it's been really cool. He was like my age when he started his painting company, and so we kind of like
Yeah.
grew together. He's got 5 or 6 people working with him, and I keep him busy. So it was a beautiful thing.
All right,
And
good.
then
So rough start with the subs. And then did you like doubt it when that was happening? Because I think a lot of people, Kenzie, I know a lot of people are like, that's what they're literally afraid of with subcontracting, as if that never happens with employees, you
right,
know? Oh, no, I've never had a problem on a project with employees. It's like, okay. So, but that's what people are afraid of is like, I'm going to hire a sub and then there's going to be a problem. And like, did you have concerns about that when that happened? Like, I don't know, like what had you kind of stick with it um, after you had problems on literally your first two projects?
yeah, I had a lot of concerns. I was definitely very scared. I stuck it out through the winter just because I knew like I had to produce these jobs, and this was the only way I was going to get it done. And then in 2022, I actually was like, you know what? I think the employee model is better, and I'm going to try that out.
Uh,
And then I got my butt kicked even worse the next year with hiring like employees full time. So I switched back to subbing full time and just committed myself to figuring it out. And the 2 years that I've committed myself has really paid off. But yeah, in 2022, I hired 3 painters to be in house employees, and I ended up letting them all go. I was on job sites every day, painting with them, training them, and also running, the sub crews. And it just got to be too much. They weren't doing good work. I wasn't happy. People weren't showing up, and yeah, I was like, okay, well, I learned my lesson hard this time around. I'm not gonna ever do that again. So, 2022, I did 450K in revenue, and that's when
okay.
yeah, about halfway through the year, switched full time subbing.
And so did you do any of the painting yourself that year?
Yeah, the first 2/3 of the year I was painting with my in house crew, and then I would leave for estimates and leave to check in on other job sites.
Okay, got it. So what were I think it's super valuable just to hear that experience of like you had subs, things didn't go well. So you're like, yep, this was a mistake, super concerned. Let's go employees. And then you did employees and you're like, yep, that's way worse. Let's go back
Yeah.
to subs. And now you've got to figure it out. So what was challenging about employees? Like, can you just walk us through like a little more depth about your experience with employees versus subs and then how you've like made subcontracting work really effectively for you?
So I guess subs are passionate about the trade, and they're business people, and they're smart. And so working with the right subs truly just makes your life like so easy. Right now my subs can just show up to a job with the work order, walk with the customer, paint the project, and collect the final payment really without me there, like my best subs. Um, the employees I hired, they were good people, but they didn't come from a painting background, and I was training them to be painters. And my approach was probably wrong with that, but it just takes a long time to train, a full crew of 3 people to be really professional and know how to do a full interior, full exterior on their own without me. So what I found was like the hardest part of every project ended up just being pushed onto me. So there was a tall peak on a house, my employee crew didn't want to do it, and I was up there. If there was like a intricate trim area that needed on an interior, like I was there doing that and leaving them with the easy stuff. And then like touch ups too. I was doing a lot of touch ups, just going back to job sites, trying to keep my costs down. Um, Wasted a lot of just equipment, material, like brushes, things like that. And it just, yeah, wasn't the right fit. So
What did you think? So, what were your thoughts about employees? Like, why did you think that would be better? And then what was the reality? Like, where were you wrong about that?
I thought it would be better because the year prior when I had those college kids working for me, like it was bread and butter. It was super easy, low cost labor. These kids did a really good job at everything. Um, but the difference was like I was kind of friends with them and I knew them and they were good people who are all moved on to really professional careers at this point that were just looking for a summer gig where I was hiring like people to be career painters. And I feel like it was just a little bit different of an experience. Um, I wasn't able to find like as many just high quality qualified painters that wanted to come into my business because most of those people already have their own business and are subcontracting. So it's like, why not just hire them as subcontractors?
You know, you said a couple things to point to. So one was you said it was like a lot of work to train a 3-person crew because like I think you know you for sure can run a great business with employees. Like 100% you can. It's just, you know, it's a lot of work because, yeah, you've got to do the hiring and you've got to train them. And there's like a lot to do there. And you got to do it with every single employee you want. So if you want another 3-person crew, you got to do that with 3 people. So it's just a lot of work there. And then can you speak to the comment you made about subcontractors? You're like, they're passionate, they're business people, they're smart. Like, I agree. And I don't think that's what a lot of people's assumptions are. I think they look at it like, oh, like it's kind of screwed up, but I think like subcontractor is kind of a dirty word, like to some people. It's like, oh, it's a subcontractor. Like that's a bad thing. And I want to change that, because we love our subcontractors, like we love our crews, like there are people, but yeah, what's been your experience yeah, with just like the kind of people that you work with now, Antonio and others?
Yeah, I mean, it's been cool to see, especially Antonio grow over the years, but I've definitely learned like I feel like I've learned more about subcontractors, managing them and making mistakes and learning about that.
Yeah.
Like when I first started managing sub crews, I kind of was a jerk, show up and be like, why is there a touch up over here? Why is there paint on the floor? And just like was a little bit more like direct and not as nice about it, which there is a time and place for that. But the crews I have now, like if I show up and I find a touch up, they're just as worried about it as I am. Like they wish that it was taken care of before I was there. They care about the quality of their work. When I text them after a job and say, hey, I did a final walkthrough and this customer like gave you all of these compliments afterwards, they're so appreciative of just like hearing that feedback and knowing that they're making a difference, like not only for that customer, but for me too. And they know like the smoother the project goes, the easier it is for me to schedule work for them. So I feel like that relationship just naturally kind of builds and you learn more about each crew individually and kind of their strengths and their weaknesses. And um, yeah, it's pretty cool. Like just finding different ways to support them in their business too. Like Antonio, I've been teaching about job costing and like helping him kind of set up job sites. Like, how is this going to be most efficient? It's the first time he's had this many people. Like, how do we split your crew so that you're making money and just like being hand in hand with them and not just like barking orders all the time. I feel like you learn a lot about people and like their passion and how much they actually care because it's their business too. I have a business and they do. And, you know, we're equals. So
How did you go from being a typical boss? I mean, I smile because I'm like, I can relate. Like, I remember doing that. Why is there a touch up here? What's going on here? Hey, pick that up. Like, just the asshole, the asshole boss showing up on site. So you went from there to like everything you shared after around like, man, I pass along appreciation, acknowledgement. I thank them. I'm not a jerk when there's like things because they care about them and supporting Antonio and them with like how to get their numbers right and how to succeed in their business. Like those are 2 like really different approaches. Um, Obviously the one you're doing is what I endorse and what we think you should do. How did you make that transition though? Like, was it smooth? Was it fast? Like, did you learn it from like how did you learn to that it's not effective to come on site and just start barking orders? Like how did you go from there to there?
Honestly, when I went to my first PvP event, we talked a lot about language and listening, and like the levels of listening and what that means. And like level one is the word someone is saying, and then it gets into like what they're thinking, and then their like beliefs. And I wrote a lot about subcontractors because that was an issue. Like I was like, I don't know how to get through to these guys, and I basically realized that I just wasn't listening to people. Like I was hearing the words they were saying, but I wasn't actually understanding why they were saying them or what their concerns were. And I think just like applying that to both customers and subs has really given me a lot of power to just like manage situations and um, kind of create the outcome that I want, because obviously the other approach isn't, you never really get a good outcome. The sub might finish the job, but he's not going to be stoked driving home that night that he got yelled at over a drop of paint that, it was his helper or whatever. Like, so
People don't realize that it's like that treating people that way is the beginning of like putting a wedge in the relationship. And it's like, man, these are your partners, like they're your people. And by the way, same with employees. Like you treat employees, they're all people. Like you start treating people that way. And it's just going to start to drive a wedge in the relationship where it's like, I don't actually care about you, and so they're not going to care, so why would you care about me? Um, Really great though. Thanks for mentioning that too. We we made a lot of changes to the event, but it's good to know and be reminded of those different ways how we listen and how we could listen. Like
yeah,
we didn't even get to it at the most recent event.
got it. That was seriously one of the most powerful takeaways from my first event.
All right, awesome, man. So 2022, you go, not going to do subs, going to do employees. Oh, whoops, not going to do that. Going to go back to subs, and then went like really all in on subs. That was somewhere around when you came to that event, and that's when it started to change like how you were interacting with them and stuff. And 450,000, still doing a lot of painting most of the year. But then once you started doing subs, is that when you basically like quit doing the work yourself?
Kinda. I think you know the little side
Old habits die hard, man.
story. I got into roof coatings that same year that I had that employee crew, so I did use them on those roof coating projects. We closed like 120K in roof coatings in 2022, and then in 2023, I was still doing the labor on the roof coating jobs, but everything on the painting side of the company was all submodel. And that year kind of beat me into the ground, and I stopped chasing shiny objects pretty quick. I still haven't touched a roof coating project since, and eventually I want to reapproach it. But um,
Was that the same year that you told me the story about being like down in Ohio or something, and you were there for like 2 weeks, like shooting roof coatings by yourself, like 10 hours? Like, was that?
yeah, that was 2023. So the day I got back from my first PvP event, my first PM started, and I also started like 130K roof coating project all on the same day. And the first couple of weeks of my PM working for me, he was like going through course content, kind of introducing himself to customers, but also like driving Culver's chicken fingers to me and gas to fill up the sprayer. And I was like, I remember I sprayed from 5 a.m. till 9 p.m. one day, never once got off the roof. And he would just come up the ladder with food and I'd shove it in my pockets. And I just worked all day long.
Pockets.
It was crazy.
You shove it in your
In my
pockets.
pocket.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But that was another like hard lesson. And I've heard Dan Martell talk about this since, where it's like when you're first starting out, you got to say yes to opportunities just to figure out what works. But once you have a system, like you have to just run that system and scale it. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on now, and is just scaling the painting system before I get into some of that other craziness. So
Yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
great.
it was wild.
Was that the project, that 1/3? By the way, how long did it take you to actually do that project?
It took me probably 3.5 weeks to produce it by myself. That being said, like the actual roof coating portion of it probably took me 2 weeks. The first week and a half was like replacing these skylights that we had to replace before doing the roof coating. And I thought that would take me 2 days, but it took me a week and a half, which sucked. And then that sort of delayed my training of my PM.
That's funny, dude. You're like, all right, man, you start today. Go get me chicken fingers. I want a
Yeah,
video. I want a video of you just stuffing chicken fingers in your pockets.
dude, I have
That's
some
awesome.
videos spraying that roof. I'll show them to you sometime. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's like a couple football
All right.
fields.
So how big was it?
It was like 40, north of 40,000 square feet of like horizontal roof surface. So it was ginormous.
That's crazy, dude. All right. So that was 2023. The 2023 was the year of like, all right, let's like not keep doing the thing that's weird. Let's like add roof coatings. That was the theme of 2023.
So we actually got into them in 2022, and then I doubled down in
Yeah.
2023. Wanted to get as many as I could. Sold like 300K in roof coatings, um, and then about 500 in painting. And then after 2023 is when I completely stopped doing those roof coatings, just
Nice.
because I couldn't find a way to get off the labor with subcontracting at the time, with also doing sales and everything. So just
Right.
decided to
Well,
step
it's just
back.
hard because you're basically running two businesses.
Yeah, it is two businesses for sure.
Yeah. Well, and people don't realize that even if you're doing like residential and commercial, it's two businesses. Residential, the illusion is like, oh, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, no, dude, the marketing's different, the sales process is different, project management's different. Like, it's all different. You could say the same with like, even just within painting. There's like epoxy floors is a totally like that's like a different business than doing residential repaints. So, what was but it sounds like the business still grew. You went from 450,000 to 800, from 22 to 23. And it sounds like you worked more. It was a little more hectic. Did you make more money?
I think I made like 130K in 2023, but I also bought
Got it.
like 20 or 30 grand of painting or roof coating equipment that I still have. So
Yeah.
some of that
Just sitting in a
profit
shop
went.
somewhere, sitting in a storage
Exactly.
unit somewhere.
It
Sell it,
is.
man. Sell it.
Seriously.
All right, great. So then, how's anything else that you wanted to share around like the 2023 year?
I don't think so. I think that was kind of the main bullet points. But
Yep.
then, like going into 2024, stopping roof coatings. Obviously, we did 500K in painting in 2023. So our goal for 2024 was to just double the painting, don't do any roof coatings, and that's what we actually ended up doing. So in 2023, I attended a couple more leadership events, and just like through the training, I was like, dude, I'm running a business. I haven't been able to do like something for myself in a while, and I've always wanted to do an Ironman. So that was like getting to a million was one intention, but my other main intention, like across the board, was finishing the Ironman in 2024. And to do that, I had to get some of my time back. So I hired a sales rep to help out, so I could get some time to just train. And through 2024, I had my PM and my sales rep working with me.
It was a good year.
Yeah, it was a solid year. Just growing like from 500 to a million. I definitely like myself just had some leadership breakdowns and made some decisions within the company that made it hard for my PM to do his job, which ultimately led to breakdowns on his end, and we had to go separate ways. But I can get into some of those as well too.
Sure. Yeah, I was going to say. So, how's their sales rep and PM doing now?
Yeah. So that's
Spoiler, I know the answer to
right.
this.
I ended up having to let them go. So this year, 2025, I'm rebuilding. Um, but last year, to hit that $1 million mark in revenue, we were like, all right, we've got to capture every lead that comes through our system. We've got to create a system for these small projects. We've got to add, semi-transparent fences and decks, things like that. We created a painter for a day program where if a project was under our minimum, it was like $650 labor for a painter to go out. The customer bought the paint, and we just didn't manage it well. And my sales rep sold a million painter for a day projects, and it ended up just causing so many breakdowns and nightmares. And my PM couldn't actually focus on like, we have three 15K projects going on that shouldn't take much time to manage, but all of his time is managing 4 painter for a day projects and just making his life a nightmare. So we ended up axing that at the end of the year as well too, which is a good call. And yeah, I increased my project
Dude, it's
minimum.
just hard. It's really hard to avoid that because it sounds like it's this, everything sounds like it's this really simple thing, but nothing's actually simple. The only thing that's simple is to say no to a bunch of stuff. Like that's the only way to keep it simple. There's no simple, implementations. I know at Foothills we worked on like this small art finally because we got so big that we're like, dude, we're just like we're saying no to so many small projects. We don't want to say yes to them for the jobs. We want to say yes to them for like the client acquisition and the referrals and the review. Like there was just so much. And it took so long to like get that built out in a way that it's like efficient, makes sense, like it works, it's effective, like it's profitable. It's just like it's hard. It's hard to avoid those shiny objects and like seemingly simple implementations that backfire.
And we had the same thought, just like if we can do a small project for all these customers, they'll call us back. But then if those small projects don't go well, no one calls you back and it's just a nightmare. So definitely simplified things going into this next year. We also didn't have like the best system for tracking financials and job costing. And just with talking with my Sherwin rep, he was like, dude, it would benefit me so much if you bought all the paint and just paid your subs labor. So we tried that as well too and went away from the PVP system.
Uh,
And that also
yep.
just made my PM's life a nightmare. He was ordering paint here and there, running stuff to job sites. Subs ended up basically making us their liaison instead of like the person that gives them work. So the relationships just got a little bit messy. And when I had to let my team go, I truly like cut back on a lot of stuff, simplified production, let go of probably 80% of my subs, kept like my 3 really good ones, and just have been working with them, keeping them busy the last 6 or 7 months. Um, so yeah, we've made a lot of, you know, tough lessons that we probably could have just avoided by taking your advice and following things verbatim.
Well, so yeah, because it was all right. Let's use employees. So that kind of kicked your ass for like 1 year, and then another was chase shiny objects. That kicked your ass for another year, and then it was let's actually buy the materials for my Sherwin rep. Let's help him out, you know, and buy materials and chase a bunch of shiny objects again, but different shiny objects this time. It wasn't different trades. It was small job system painted for a day. Like, hey, let's do more staining and cabinet. Like, let's massively expand our scope. Kind of wild to think like, man, what if I had just like kept it really simple for like all those years where it was like, I'm just going to use subcontractors, get really good at that and grow simple painting.
Yeah, I would probably be way further if I did that.
Dude,
I for sure
I
would.
can only say it because I made all those mistakes and like a lot more. And that's the only way I can like talk about it. But all right. So then late last year, we started conversations. Oh yeah, that was I remember that. It was like you sent me that big long, you had a lot of questions, and I went through them, and I'm like, dude, this just so you know, like it might make sense for us to talk about a partnership with National Painting Group. So then after a bunch of conversations, we decided to partner up with you. So we made, and I haven't talked about this a lot on the show, but just because I know it's like it makes sense for us to bring this in. So we made an acquisition in your company and officially like kicked that off January 1st. So yeah, you want to just share about like the big changes that you're making now, um, and how it's going.
The main change we made to production coming into NPG was following your system with um, the subs purchasing the paint and the labor. So that helped us out a ton. And then just like the business side of things, like we implemented Salesforce with you guys, implemented your MVP file, and that truly cleaned up like all of the financial issues and tracking issues that I had going on in the background, just tracking projects, dealing with PMs and my sales rep and things like that. So now we're fully onboarded into that. And now I'm
And
working
by the
with,
way, just for anyone who's listening, it's like that took us a long time to like solve that. And Kenzie knows because he's seen the sale, like seen what that looks like to get that really dialed in right. But man, like having everything like to the penny accurate every single week across your financials, across your MVP file, across your CRM is a game changer. All right, so we implemented that really quick, and then you also said you cut down a lot of your subcontractors. Was that before we were working together, or was that part of some of the changes we told you to make?
it was a little bit of both. It was like around the time that I got your master competency models, I was going through the production training, and it was just talking about A player subs and like how a PM can get to the point where they're producing 60 or 80 grand a week. And it was like universally, you got to have the right subs trained into your system. So I cut pretty much everybody out that wasn't aligned with that, and that was giving me grief. Um, and it's been awesome because them leaning into it has helped me take some of my time back, but also they're more successful and they don't need me as much, and they probably don't like seeing me all the time. So it's been good. And now where we're at, we're fully onboarded into the systems. I'm going to a lot of development and training sprints with you guys, just aligning myself with NPG. But the main thing we're working on now, and finally gained a lot of traction with it, is rehiring my team, which we chatted about. But I'm going into my final interview with a PM candidate on Monday with Paul, and
Yeah.
I'm feeling really good about it. So yeah, I'm excited.
What have you learned in that production process? So obviously, Paul, for anyone who doesn't know, so Paul has been working with me since, I mean, we actually met in college. So I trained Paul at the CollegeWorks internship in 2010. And then he came to work with me at Foothills in 2012, I think. And he's been like building the production department ever since then. And so now he just like lives and breathes production. So he hires, trains, manages, develops like essentially all the project managers across all the companies, and loves doing it. So um, what did you learn just going through side by side with him through that like recruiting process? What were the big takeaways?
This has been one of the biggest, like most valuable things, honestly, in the last couple of months. But um, like in the actual first initial phone interview with a candidate, a lot of times I was like selling myself and like, this is why you want to come work for me. Where Paul, his approach is truly like dig into the person and figure out if this is the right fit for them and then kind of go from there. So he's asking them all sorts of questions, like down to compensation, lifestyle, like kids, time commitments, changing industries and how that'll affect you. Like, what season of your life are you in? You know, do you like personal development? What do you do for personal development? Like, really getting in there. And if we do have any concerns, like, no stone is left unturned. He's really making sure that this person is a solid fit to move on to the next position. So I think that was a very big takeaway. Another takeaway, and this is like Paul and I had this conversation, but you and I also had a similar one, is just like, this is the next important thing in my company. And once I'm through this, I can move on to the next thing. So let's figure out how to make this happen fast. Initially, I was running one job ad and I scaled it, but we were probably getting like 3 to 5 cover letters a week. Maybe 1 or 2 were good. So we were doing like 1 or 2 initial calls a week. And then it got to the point after you chatted with me and Paul said the same thing. He's like, we just got to figure out how to speed this up. So I posted a lot more job ads, tested headlines, and found a different headline that I wasn't using that produced way more cover letters, way more applicants, like for a lot cheaper. So I stopped the other ads, scaled that, and then just like schedule wise, I was meeting with Paul 1 or 2 times a week to talk to these people. And then if I talked to someone, I would record it and send it to them. But last Thursday, I was like, dude, screw it. I just need to get through this. So I did like 7 back-to-back phone interviews all day long on Thursday on the hour, like 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 through the day. And through that, found like one really good candidate and 2 or 3 that were solid, but weren't as good as the one guy. So we moved him on to the interview. Um, but yeah, those were some of the main takeaways. The cover letter thing's also just interesting to me. How many people don't submit a cover letter, or it's AI, or they didn't even read what to write in the cover letter. So it does make it a little bit easier to run the system when you don't have like as many people that you're obligated to try and talk to. when you only have to talk to the good ones.
Yeah, that's great. And, yeah, so basically we started working with Kenzie and we're like, all right, man. So, I think you had already fired your project manager, right? Like that was already done last fall
Yeah, it was
and
like
came in and we're like, all right, we're going to spend, go ahead.
it was after I decided to join NPG, but we were still just like in the transition period before the event. So Paul actually walked me through that as well too. I like asked you guys if I could talk with someone and chatted through that whole thing with Paul and Hunter. But yeah,
Gotcha. Yep. All right. So first things we're like, yep, fire that guy. And then we're like, sale. All right, January. Yep, fire your sales guy. That was like our
yeah,
first advice to you. It's like, fire your whole team. You're like,
yeah,
what, dude? And then we're like, all right, spend the next 3 months, like, or the next 100 days. We made a 100-day plan. We're like, all right, you need to integrate Salesforce, integrate the financial tracking, integrate the marketing tracking, clean this up, clean that up. Like, it was all this foundational stuff. And Kinsey like sprinted through it all. And then it's been like, let's get aggressive recruiting the PM. And then before we got on, I was saying, all right, you need to start posting the ads for the sales rep like right now. And then you'll get connected with either Hunter or Adam to like start going through that whole process, recruit your sales rep. But you feel like you got a PM you're hiring next week, probably.
I do. Yeah, Paul and I, before we got the NPG people's feedback, we're like, yeah, we're like 90% sure he's the guy. And then Hunter, Chris Hartland, and Ben chatted with them or with him, and they all liked him. So yeah, we're excited.
Nice. That's a big
Finally.
deal. All right. And I'm just curious too, because you also so you've been recruiting a PM for like 2 months. And I remember a couple of weeks ago, you had a project manager in like the final stages, like literally coming down to like, we're about to hire them. And we basically vetoed it. For, we don't need to get into like the reasons why, but we like said, nope, can't do it. Like, we're not going to bend on that. Like, were you like, like bummed? Would you have hired that person? Like, I'm just curious, how you felt when we basically said, no, you can't hire that person.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Paul and I got off the interview with her, and Paul was like, "Dude, pause the ads. This is it. This is the person. Like, found her." And then I did the whatever, dug up some stuff, and then yeah, I was pretty bummed. I was like, I really have to start this all over. Like, I was still set on hiring her, but just was like, screw it. Paul and I basically made a plan of like, let's still support her and see if we can hire her in the future. But if we can find and recruit a better PM in the meantime, then like, let's do both at once. And whatever happens first, like, let's go with that. And we ended up finding someone really good like a week later. And with that other candidate, I'm still hoping that in a couple of years, things might turn around and we might be able to keep her on
Yeah.
board or bring her on board at that time. But
Dude, it's just like we've been through it enough to know that like you don't make concessions. It's so easy to get in that like scarcity mentality of like, oh, but like this is the one. It's like, dude, there's so many people out there. Like, we'll find another. So 2 weeks later, you're like, yep, got one that has zero concerns. So anyways, when Paul told me about that, I'm like, oh, poor Kenzie.
yeah,
He's so close, but it's a no.
it was tough. But I don't know. I like to keep my spirits high. Like, even if I'm going through something hard, I've been in worse situations at mile 80 of an ultra marathon where I'm physically feel like I'm going to die. So it's kind of like, you'll live.
It's fine.
Just keep moving forward.
Exactly.
Just
Exactly.
like anything else. So
Yeah. Well, it's like we're kind of pause the whole business and like scrape it clean so we can get the right foundation in place, which, we've done in the last couple months. And now it's like, all right, now it's time to grow it and build it the right way. Anything else you want to share, Kenzie? If you were going to be talking to someone who's, you know, almost 20, early 20s, may or may not be going to college, like what's what would you say to Kenzie from 4 years ago?
I think it took a lot for me to take that initial jump, but there's that old saying that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. And it's kind of like you just have to bet on yourself and go for it. It's hard to spend money on things that you don't know you for sure have a return on, but like when you're my age or 20 years old, like the biggest investment truly is yourself. And I still believe that to this day. I would rather put 10 grand into my business or myself on development than I would in the stock market, because I can't control the stock market, but I can, you know, have an input and a say in what I do with my time and how hard I work and where I put my focus. So just keep developing yourself, surround yourself with like-minded people, and it's just one step at a time, really. I mean, even right now, I've 100 million things on a future to-do list, but the most important thing is just hiring the PM. So if you're always just working on that, good things will happen. It just takes time.
Hey, and also, what were like your goals? What were you like? All right, when you started your business compared to like where you are now? When you started, it's like, man, I just, was it literally like food, rent, and ski? As long as I can make enough money to do that, and then how have your goals changed? And what are they now?
Yeah. So when I first started, my only goal was to make enough money to ski in the winter. Like, as long as I can go on a trip, I'm happy. And I did that my first year, so my goals did change pretty quick. But going into the phase of life that I'm in now, like, I'm going to get married soon, want to buy a house, want to eventually have a family. Like, my goals are more aligned with creating freedom for myself and my family, like financially, but also time wise. And then along the way, creating opportunities for other people to grow within the company and move up really inspires me. And I know the company won't grow if there aren't those opportunities. So it's kind of what I'm building now. I'm hoping that, one day we're a $5-10 million company with great people that are making great money and we're all aligned. But yeah, it's just one step at a time.
I don't have any doubts about that all happening.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm in the best position I've ever been in, like, just from my financial tracking to marketing tracking to the support I have with you guys, you know, on all sides of the business, to actually helping me hire people, train those people, keep developing them. Like, I've never had this opportunity before, so I'm excited.
Yeah, man. Well, and just, what Kenzie would never, say, but as someone who's known him and known you for since you started your business, basically, and then been to a number of different leadership events with you, and one thing that Kenzie's done like really, really well is like, I mean, he made plenty of your mistakes, not listening.
Yeah.
Right. So, but the reality is too, is like, you've been one of the most like coachable and most hungry to learn people over the years. And I think that's like, that was a big reason why it's like, yeah, Kenzie's totally like one of us. It's just the way you took on like the leadership events and the development and training yourself and learning from the mistakes. Like, dude, the reality is everyone needs to learn lessons the wrong way or the hard way. Like, everyone needs to do that. I don't think I have an exception to that. Like, everyone like I've ever coached, Hunter and Ben included, like my partners included. And I certainly learned most things the hard way. Like, that's just kind of part of it. But that is for sure one thing that I know has really stood out with Kenzie or with you over all the years, was just like how much you like keep showing up, keep investing in yourself, keep learning, keep working at it. And that's where I'm like, dude, I have no doubts, man. You've got so much time ahead of you. It's crazy to see, like, man, you're so much further ahead than I was when I was your age. It's crazy. So you the man.
Yeah, it's cool. Thank you for all that.
Yep.
And yeah, everything that you've given us through PPP, the events, or NPG, like, it's cool because it doesn't take much effort on my end for that stuff to work on me. Like, it's, once you hear some of those things once, like, you can't unhear it. And it just takes time to work through it and keep applying those principles to other areas in the business and your life, and things just snowball. So it's cool.
Yeah, man. We got a lot more coming. All right. Thank you, Mr. Kenzie. Hope you all enjoyed the episode. Let me know. We'd love to hear. And I will see you soon, Kenzie. And to everybody else, we'll see you on the next show. Peace.
Thanks, Eric.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. I hope you found it valuable. We make these episodes in the show for you, truly. So your feedback is super valuable to us, whether it's, things you liked, things you didn't like, what you want to see more of, what you want to see less of. Any feedback you can give us is going to be super helpful as we continue to evolve and improve the show over time. And if you want a copy of the Fast Growth Roadmap for Painting Contractors, which really simplifies the steps you take to building a business, we've got that resource for free for you. Just check the description or the bio below where you're watching or listening to this episode, and you can just click and download that for free, and it should help give you a good roadmap for how to build and scale your business like the people that you're listening to on the show. So thanks for listening in. We'll see you soon.